These are 5 real horror stories from people who thought they were safe. Home Alone. I was 14 years old. It was just an average night, around 10 p.m. I was babysitting my little cousin while the rest of our family was out for the evening. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling in my stomach, like something was wrong. At first I tried to ignore it, kept watching TV with my cousin, but the feeling, it just wouldn't go away. So I got up and checked the back door. That's when I saw him. Through the kitchen window, there was a man, skinny, decrepit looking, just standing there, staring. Not at me, but at my cousin. I froze. My heart dropped. I didn't want to scare my cousin, so I told him it was bedtime, and I tucked him in upstairs. But I knew someone was out there. I went back downstairs and grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a metal meat tenderizer. When I looked back at the window, the man was gone. I locked every door in the house. Then I went back upstairs, sat in front of my cousin's bedroom door. Weapon in hand, I told him to stay quiet, to hide under the covers. Then I called the police. They said it would take at least 30 minutes. And that's when I heard it, glass shattering, the sound of heavy boots crunching across the floor downstairs. My cousin looked at me with wide eyes. I told him to stay hidden. The man was inside. I could hear him walking slowly through the living room, then the kitchen. Every second felt like an eternity. Then, the boots started coming up the stairs. My cousin's room was only 10 feet from the staircase. I heard him opening doors. The bedroom, the bathroom, one after another, and then silence, until a door creaked open downstairs. The basement, he went down. 15 minutes later, the police arrived. They searched the house and found him hiding in the basement. He wasn't just a drifter. He was an escapee from a mental hospital, miles away. That night still haunts me, because for nearly half an hour, there was only a thin wooden door between me, my cousin, and a complete maniac. It was a quiet Saturday morning. A man was sitting on his back porch, sipping coffee, enjoying the silence of the countryside. But that calm was about to end. From the tree line at the edge of his property, he noticed movement. And then, a large, unkempt man suddenly burst out of the woods. He was charging straight toward the house. My friend lived alone, and luckily, he often used his backyard as a makeshift shooting range. Instinct kicked in. He bolted every door in the house and dialed 911. But what he didn't know was that the man had already been inside his home the night before. The intruder had crawled through a basement window, squatted there overnight, and left the door unlocked. Now, he was climbing the stairs, making his way up. My friend grabbed his shotgun and aimed it down the hallway. The man appeared. The first shot, rock salt. It barely slowed him down. The second shot, a rubber round to the chest. But the man kept advancing, eyes wide, crazed, like nothing could stop him. By the third shot, whether it was a slug or buckshot, my friend wasn't sure, but it tore a hole straight through the intruder's chest. And still, he kept coming. They collided. The man wrestled him to the floor, but the wound finally caught up to him, and he collapsed, dead, on top of my friend. Meanwhile, the 911 operator had heard everything. The shouts, the gunshots, and the intruder's last words. "Shoot me, motherfucker." Police swarmed the scene minutes later. It even made the local papers. After an investigation, my friend was cleared of any wrongdoing. Turns out, the man had escaped from a mental hospital nearly 50 miles away. To this day, my friend struggles with the thought that for at least one night, that stranger had been sleeping in his basement, watching, waiting for the right moment. When I was a kid, I didn't want to go to a funeral of a close family friend. I stayed home, alone. My parents were furious, but I didn't care. I was sitting in my room, playing a video game. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then, there was a knock at the door. At first, I didn't think much of it. I opened the door. No one was there. I shrugged it off, went back to playing. But 20 minutes later, I heard it again. Louder, more desperate. It made me jump. I looked out the window. Nothing. I opened the door again. Still no one. Until I saw it. A German shepherd, all black, standing just on the other side of the fence, staring, just staring at me. It shouldn't have scared me, but it did. I went back to my game. 10 minutes later, banging, kicking. The door shook. My heart was racing. I ran to my parents' room, grabbed my dad's gun. Adrenaline surged through me. I checked the window. The dog. It was now on my side of the fence, right in front of the door, just staring, not moving, nothing. But its eyes felt like they were burning into me. I never stayed home alone again. Years later, I told my dad the story. He started laughing, cackling. He admitted it had been his friend, playing a prank on me. At first I was angry, but looking back, I realized how terrifying it really was. Even as a joke, it stuck with me. When I was 7, I was home alone with my older sibling. We lived in a small town, quiet enough that everyone knew everyone. That day, my sibling was grounded, and both of our phones locked away in my dad's gun safe. Our parents had gone to check on my great-grandmother, telling us they'd be back soon, and we'd order pizza. 7-year-old me thought that sounded perfect. We played video games for a while. The house was quiet except for the sounds of the game. After a couple of hours, I heard a knock at the door. Excited for the pizza, I went down first, and then I saw him. Not my parents. A tall, lean man, white, mid-20s, scruffy hair and facial stubble. I had no idea who he was. In our town, everyone knew everyone. I raised my finger, signaling 1 second, and closed the curtain. My siblings stared at the door, eyes wide, frozen. And then, the knocking changed. It became pounding, shaking, rattling the doorknob. Harder, faster, more desperate. We were terrified. With no way to call our parents, my sibling grabbed my hand and dragged me into the kitchen. They picked up a knife. It snapped in their hand. Then another. We hid in the laundry room, holding each other, trembling. The pounding continued. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. Then, silence. A creak. The front door opened slowly. My sibling was ready to defend me. Every instinct on high alert, knife raised, heart racing. But it wasn't him. It was my mom, carrying pizza boxes, asking why we were on the floor, crying. We ran to tell her about the man outside, but she laughed. Dad was talking to him in the driveway. Apparently, he was a mechanic, asking about a car we had sitting in the yard. We were relieved, but something didn't sit right. Why would a grown man pound on the door like that? Shake the handle, trying so desperately to get inside. Why would he want to talk about a car at 9 p.m. to children home alone? Even now, as an adult, I can't stop thinking about that night. What would have happened if our parents hadn't come home when they did? I don't want to know. I was around 12 years old. Home alone, late at night, for the very first time. I had fallen asleep in my room when suddenly the phone rang. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. I picked it up, half asleep. But what I heard made my skin crawl. At first it was just silence. Then, heavy breathing, followed by a low voice, whispering the most disgusting things. Graphic, threatening things they said they wanted to do to me. My stomach dropped. I slammed the phone down and tried to convince myself it was just a prank. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone out there knew I was alone. I went back to my bedroom, forcing myself to breathe slowly, but then 3 knocks echoed against the glass. Not the door. My window. I froze. And when I finally turned my head, I saw him. A boy from the neighborhood. Someone who'd always been off. He had a twisted grin pressed up against the glass. Eyes wide, unblinking. My blood ran cold. Because if he had the nerve to knock on my window in the middle of the night, what else was he capable of? I didn't move. Didn't scream. I just stood there, heart pounding in my chest, praying for my parents to come home. Minutes dragged on like hours, until finally headlights washed over the front of the house. My parents pulled into the driveway. By the time they stepped inside, he was gone. But that night still haunts me, because I'll never forget the look in his eyes, pressed against my window, and the sickening thought that maybe he wasn't just there to scare me,